energy for your summer and looking ahead to the next school year. As always, we have our recurring guests here, Dr. Sean Smith coming to us from Kansas and Dr. David Bateman coming to us from, oh geez, just down the road in Pennsylvania. But gentlemen, we welcome you back. Thank you for helping us consider ways to close out this school year, make the most of our summer, and ensure that we get off to the right foot in the fall. I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Okay.
You could stop sharing, Ethan. There you go. All right, we can see you, David.
All right.
We're set.
All right, thanks. All right, we're set. All right, so I just want to reiterate some things that Sarah started with and clarify that this is live because I'm in Carlisle right now, and it's nice to see all the friendly faces of the people that I've worked with over the past couple of years. There's weird shots going on, and so if I start ducking, please bear with me as I speak. But we are doing this live. For the first couple minutes here, we're going to be talking about end of the year strategies, but I'm going to push free stuff on you. And that's my goal, is to get as much free stuff to you so that you have some sense of ways of paying attention and following where we are with this. And so I've been collecting things over the past couple weeks, just kind of get some things that will help you as you think not only the end of the year, but also how to move forward into next year. The first thing is there's a free special ed tip. If you want a free tip on how to do things, only like a paragraph or so, it comes out every Tuesday. It's a Tuesday special ed tips. Just send an email to me at bateman@specialedconsultant.org, and I will add you to the list. But it's a free tip. We will never sell anything. We'll never try to give your name into anywhere else, but just a free special ed tip. It's a way to keep up to date what's going on. I'm involved in a lot of lawsuits, and I'm just trying to keep people aware of what's going on out there so that they understand precisely where the latest and hottest and greatest what we're involved. Because and I've made this promise to some of you. If you've not been involved in a lawsuit, contact me, because we can help get one to your district if that's something you would like. But it's a free service that we can provide as well as this, but for free special ed tips every Tuesday. Next thing is I'm going to post a number of things, and I highly recommend that you think about this. Twitter has come under a lot of scorn and ridicule late because of a variety of things, and the recent purchase of it or pretended purchase of it by Elon Musk. But it's an individual with autism. But what's interesting about this is I want to share with you some things that I've pulled down from Twitter, and I want to highlight a number of these things because I follow the Patan Twitter feed, and I want to recommend that you do something like this. Follow what's going on, but I also want to brag on Patan. And I mean this literally. I'm involved in with a number of state education agencies. And when I tell them the services that are provided by Patan and the assistance that Patan provides and the workshops that are provided here, the other states are genuinely jealous. And I mean this sincerely. My main work is involving a class action lawsuit against the state right now. And it's really interesting about this is there's nothing like this in other states. So I'm just going to highlight some of the things that I've pulled off their Twitter feed just in the past couple of weeks that you should absolutely pay attention to. These are all, again, free resources, wonderful resources that you can highlight, share with your colleagues, and just wonderful information. You should be thankful that you live in Pennsylvania, and should be thankful about what's going on here because there's great resources. The first one here, okay? The first one here is just a crosswalk between UDL and the Danielson framework for teaching. So go to the Patan website and things like this. Now, the other things, all the notes that I'm sharing with you here, they'll be available I've emailed them to Dr. Pan. He'll put them on and you can download them so that all these links will be there for you. The second one, difference between traditional education and UDL, which is some variety of things here that you can pay attention to. There's some wonderful resources here for you to understand and to address, and some just great things that are here for you. But just make sure you understand what UDL is. I mean, for those of you who don't understand what UDL is, I'm married to an architecture historian. She reminds me that UDL actually came from architecture and was transferred to teaching, and understands these kinds of things. So we need to pay attention to this as we talk about these things, okay? The next one is just information about UDL and math. Patan again, yay for the win. But great resources here that can help you understand what's going on. And this again, linked to what we're doing, Pennsylvania standards, Pennsylvania understanding, Pennsylvania assistance on where we are with this, okay? More, right? Pennsylvania State Performance Plan B, Part B indicators, now available in Spanish. You can download this. With the increasing population of individuals who are Spanish speaking in our Commonwealth, this is important for us to understand what we can do to participate and get them to be involved. A very important part of this. Okay, so more. Wait, there's more. The Pennsylvania has the bulletin that they want to share your story, so you can contact them at the Bureau of Special Education bulletin and just share information that you want. They're looking for quick tips and tangible tools that educators can start using in their classroom right away. I know there's a number of educators who are on the Zoom that I've worked with who would be great for sharing this information. And I'm not going to mention names, but I might shame you later if you don't. But what's interesting about this is that there are some great resources that we need to build into. Okay, more. Patan is now on LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn. I have no idea what the heck LinkedIn is, but they're there. All right, it's more. Okay, and more. Okay, the National Autism Conference. A great conference at State College in the first week of August. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. The resources provided for teachers, the resources provided for parents, the resources provided for related services personnel, and the resources provided for administrators are incredible. And so you need to make sure that you sign up for this. Like last year, remote attendance is available, so that's something that you can participate as a part of this. Okay. More. Wait, there's more. Okay. The Bureau of Special Education has a bulletin for educators, where you can find and pay attention to the latest what's going on. A free subscription. So far, look at all the stuff that I'm shilling for you. That's all free so far. This is amazing. It's better than anything else. So it's better than trick or treating. This is good for you. All right. And so, all right. So there's a workshop. There's a workshop on accelerated learning. There's some great resources on accelerated learning, and that is the watchword of what we're talking about in many school districts when I'm addressing things. I'll be speaking in New Jersey on this tomorrow. But accelerated learning, trying to get the kids to catch up on what they lost over the past 2 years. And many of us, I've talked with a number of you on the Zoom today. I've talked with a number of you who said that when the kids came back last fall, the lack of maturity, the lack of progress that they made was palpable. There's some great tips at this website on accelerated learning that I can't emphasize enough. Again, it's free resources all tied to what we're doing in Pennsylvania, things like this. Okay, and more. AAC Talks, the power of language. And I'll talk about the power of language in a few minutes. But this is just another web conference that you should sign up for on assistive technology, because as we know, many of the kids we work with are requiring the need of assistive technology, and the assistive technology is providing great resources. And we used a lot of assistive technology and technological devices with kids over the past 2 years. So great resources available for them. Okay, more. Person-centered planning. Again, this is all in the past couple of weeks. I didn't go looking for this. These just showed up automatically in my free little Twitter feed. So just person-centered planning is a way of the future, and you need to think about how it would provide assistance for you as a part of this. Okay, so some non-Patan things that I'm going to highlight for you. Okay, some things that I want to share with you. Public Health Service is talking about screen time for all kids, to screen all kids for anxiety. Because think about this, one of the things and you've heard me say this before, I'm just going to feel comfortable saying it again, is that when we talk about anxiety, one of the things we often look at is how kids go how they do on the ACEs and the adverse childhood experiences. And many of these kids have had adverse childhood experiences these past 2 years. So we need to think about this as we're talking about this, where we are with this. Okay, more a report from OSEP. The Office of Special Education Programs, fact sheet on students who are English language learners served under Part B. You can see this. The Part B is all the kids ages 6 through 21 who are eligible for special education related services. And so what we have there, you can see English language learners account for just shy of 12%. It may be much larger in your district, but you can just see what we have as a part of this and what's going on here. Right? So just a little more status, things like this. Another thing, and this is one for administrators out there that you need to pay attention to. And teachers, get this to your administrators, is the Council for Exceptional Children is having a series of workshops on combating shortages of educators. And so it's a series from around the nation trying to highlight what can be done out there to provide assistance and provide wonderful assistance to help address the severe shortage that we have in special education and the problems we have relating to this. So this is something that is vital and something that is probably pressing. And many of your administrators will probably need to pay attention to this because there's different tricks and tips that we need to pay attention to. My daughter's graduating from college with her certification in special education next week. And the volume of people who have reached out to her from districts up and down the Eastern Seaboard is shocking. And she already has a job, so it's really interesting. But now she's thinking, maybe I should get a different job. But no, it's really interesting. But how people are being creative about their resources and paying attention to this. So pay attention to this one. That's a good one. Okay, more. Some of you, and most of you just deal with special education. I'm aware of this. But some of you are working with kids eligible for Section 504. And these are kids who have disabilities but do not receive special education related services. Just a few days ago, the U.S. Department of Education, seeking to strengthen and protect services and rights for students with disabilities relating to Section 504, has asked for comments relating to this. Now, Pennsylvania is different from most states. Is if parents upset with the services that they're being received under this, they can file a due process hearing under our Chapter 15 rules. Most states don't have that opportunity. They have to go through the Office of Civil Rights. So there's a lot of dispute, and there's how much extended time is enough. And if a kid, for instance, they have extended time on a test, how much time can they get an extended time on a project that's take home? What do we mean by this? What is how much things? So there's a lot of questions out there relating to this, and there's some things I want to pay attention to. Another thing, and this is a document that I wrote, but it's in Dr. Pan has this, share it with all the participants, is basically a step-by-step guide on how to write a Section 504 plan. From my understanding, it's being used for how to write a Section 504 plan by 11 states and 2 of our territories. It provides guidance. It's a 63-page document. I think PSEA has it on their website. So if you want to download it from PSEA, just type in PSEA 504 in the Google, and you should have access to these things like this. But it's a variety of great resources for you out there. All the things I've been telling you about are great resources, and you should be proud of what Patan's putting out there for you. Wonderful, huge asset to our community, because our job is not easy. And in many respects, we need guidance and we need help from the states, and other states are not providing this. And I mean this literally. I'm working in 10 different states right now, and they're not receiving this, and we need to provide this and provide guidance in this. Okay. So what I'm going to shift to, as the title is things, is talk about where we need to do to get ready for next year. And I mean this literally. Okay, you're at the end of the year trying to figure out, and most of you can't wait to be at the end of the year. I'm aware of this. I was in schools last week, and every school I was in had the counter on the chalkboard. Right? But as you think about this, as you think about data, and I'm a huge fan of collecting data. Some of you have heard me say this before in other settings, but you need to think about at the end of your reporting, review your current reporting. Review what's easier and how you can update and improve for next year. What are some data things that you wish you gathered through the course of the year that could make your end of the year reporting that much easier? And I mean this literally, because it's time now to think about this as you do the end of the year reports for where we are with this, the number of kids and the services being provided. You need to think about what you can do next year to change this. So what data reporting do you need for next year? What training do you need for new staff when they come back to school in August so that they can understand exactly what's being asked of them? These are important things to think about now. Think about, in hindsight, what you wish you'd done, and then make plans for next year as a part of this. This year was different. This year was different than previous year, thankfully, but we have to think about next year we're likely to be more in school and then have more services for kids. So think about what we need to do is about collecting data. Wait, more on this. Review training materials, okay? Review all your training materials. Make sure that they're up to date. I mean this literally. Make notes within the materials about any changes you need to make. But think about this for teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, related to services personnel. What can we do to improve the training materials for where we need to be so that we all are providing appropriate services for the kids? And make sure the other things. Just make notes, but look at the training materials. Think about the training materials that you provide for the teachers as they come back to school, and for everyone when you get them back together in August. What are some things that you really wish that they had learned? Think now, make notes on this. Don't wait till August to do this. Think about it now. It's going to be a lot easier, and it doesn't need to be long notes, but something to remind you and prompt you on this so that you can improve the services for kids and make the job easier so that your teachers are more successful. This is vital and will work to improve a lot of things where we are with this. More, new rules. As you pay attention to the rules, are there any significant new rules, district policies, state policies, federal rules, Medicare childcare reimbursement because of things. What do you need to make sure that you're updating these on these new rules and policies and things like this? So make sure that you look retrospectively about what you wish you to change and improve that as you go forward on this. More, okay? Progress monitoring. Yeah, I beat this as like a dead horse, but it's interesting about this. Look at your progress monitoring data. Many of you have heard me say this in multiple venues about this, but I mean this sincerely. If there's one thing that would change litigation nationwide, is if we dramatically increase the amount of progress monitoring data we had on kids and then use that for informed decision-making. I'm not being hyperbolic on this. I truly mean this. So look at your ease of use of progress monitoring data. How easy is it to use? How easy for the teachers to get the data? And how easy it is to share that information with the parents? Should we get regular updates? How are we going to get regular data? I mean, I just did a review of a district this morning where they were taking one data point per marking period. They can't tell me yay or nay if the kid's making progress about what's going on. But that is important for informed decision-making. Use the data for informed decision-making so we have a better understanding of what's expected, better understanding of where to go with this, and a better understanding of what we can do to improve the services for kids. More. New staff interview. Take all the new staff that you had this past year, sit them down. Just sit them down, doesn't have to take long, and ask them what they wish they'd known about your district, what they wish they'd learned back August, September that would have made their lives easier. They're fresh. Don't ask the veterans. They've been there. They've forgotten. Ask the people who are brand spanking new. Ask them about what's going on, pay attention to what they say, and incorporate that into your new training. Is it new guidance? Is it the unwritten rules? Now, we all have stories about the formal rules, but also the unwritten rules. And what we need to do relating to changes to training to improve the services so that the new teachers and new staff that you're hiring next year have a more successful year. This is vital. This is vital because it's going to pave the way for improving what you're doing, but you need to think about this right now. Use the knowledge base you have of these new teachers. Just grab them. New staff, just grab them. What do they wish they knew as a part of this? And ask them what they can do to learn more. Okay, more. New staff reporting. Make sure that all new staff are understanding that there's end of the year data, end of the year notes, end of the year letters to parents that need to be provided. Many of these teachers are just treading water right now. They're just trying, they see the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel that's coming up with the end of the school year in a few weeks. But you have to remind them as you close up the school year that there's certain things that need to be provided and make sure they understand this. Documentation is vital as a part of this process. And documentation is necessary as we are working to update the services and working to improve where we are with this. This is a vital part of the process, and we need to ensure where we do this and pay attention to where we are this. Okay, but just keep in mind all that new staff reporting that we can do to pay attention to what we're going with this. Okay, now, as I said a minute ago, talk to all staff. What can be done better for next year? This past year was tough. I'm not disputing this. This past year was tough for a lot of teachers. What changes, needs, wishes, and this is something that you can give them. You can give them. If I were to give you a magic wand, what one thing would you change? And ask that. I just did a review of a school district in West Virginia the past 2 weeks. And it's interesting. I asked individuals what was the one thing, not the whole totality, what's the one thing that they would focus on if they had the magic wand for 5 minutes, what would they change? And it was surprising from different parking, different training, better lunches to a better break for some of the kids, some of the teachers so that they can actually leave the classroom, better bathrooms, just for a variety of things. It's amazing what teachers say, but give the teachers the magic wand and listen to them. Listen to them and pay attention to where we are with this and address where we are and keep that in mind. Okay. Now, some of you have also heard me say this in other venues. We need to involve the parents. Keep the parents in the loop. Do not do anything that involves separating the parents. Keep the parents so that there are no surprises. So as the end of the year, they understand precisely what's going to be going on. So if you have some indication that their child's education may be housed in a different building, give them that heads up and let them do a walkthrough so they understand, so that it's not a surprise when they come back for school in the fall. So keep this in mind as we talk about these things, okay? Now, one thing that I want to focus on this, and I mean this literally, is too many of the documents that I am seeing are too difficult for parents to read. So when I said just a minute ago, involve the parents, make sure that documents you provide to them are easy to read. It's in plain language. We need to use effective communication because we also increasingly have non-native speakers as a part of this. So look at the readability. I'll get some examples from a workshop that I helped run 2 years ago. But you think about this, make it easier to read, and so pay attention to this. So let me give you an example, and these are from the Parent Education and Training Center in Virginia. It's based in Alexandria, and there's some documents there. But look at this one. This is at the 10th grade reading level. Okay, we will schedule a meeting of all the IEP team members to discuss the transition aspects of Melissa's IEP. Melissa will need to determine whether she wants to attend her IEP meeting and what input she desires to provide regarding her future plans for post-secondary activities. Long sentences, lots of verbiage, 10th grade reading level. Most of your parents, I'm betting, are not at a 10th grade reading level. Wait, let's make it a little better. Okay, here is at a 7th grade reading level. We'll hold Melissa's IEP meeting on August 15th. Melissa will need to tell us when she's coming and what she would like to talk about regarding her plans for after high school. Shorter sentences, verbiage is a little better, but it's something that we need to pay attention to. Wait, it gets better. Don't leave. All right. 4th grade reading level. Okay. Melissa, here, 4th grade level. Melissa's IEP meeting is on August 15th. Melissa can let us know if she's coming. She can talk about what she wants to do after high school. Same context, same material, same information, but more accessible for parents. Pay very close attention to how we say things to parents. Because I can't tell you, because a number of the ERs and RRs that I review in the Commonwealth are written at a graduate level. Some of the FBAs, boom, they're also written at a graduate level. And we need to do things so parents can understand precisely where we are with this. And how do you do this? I mean, gear it. So I recommend gear it. Now, this is not talking down to parents. It's just making everything accessible, but geared towards grades 4 to 6. I mean, Microsoft Word has a great indicator in it. So does Apple's Pages. That's what I use. It's easy to access and can tell you understand where you are with this. Use that as an indicator of where to go with this. But there's some questions you need to ask as you're going through this. And again, you can download this and share it with your team as a part of this. Can your reader easily find the information they need? It's amazing how many times I read IEPs and I can't tell you, I'm reading the present level statement and I don't know anything about I have to make it up as where the child is. One thing that I really recommend, some of your districts that are on the Zoom, I've worked in your districts, and I always recommend a paragraph summary to start. It could be a bullet point summary to start about what's going on, because a lot of teachers don't read the whole present level statement. The PLAF statement for them is too long. They don't understand where to look. Just got bullet points and word, but find it, make it easy. Second, can the reader understand the information? Can the reader understand the information that's presented to him? And will the reader be able to use the information the way you wrote it? So pay very close attention to these kinds of things and address this as we move forward. Okay. So how to write the text. Okay. Think about what the key message is. When you're trying to say what is the easiest way to get the information, use active voice. Microsoft Word dings me for that all the time, so that's why I stopped using it. But yeah, things like this, but you can see an example here. Use shorter words. Avoid run-on sentences or multi-part sentences. I mean, just things like this. But the one thing that you can absolutely do, okay, is avoid jargon. Okay, terms that only certain people can use, like professionals of the field, and acronyms. If you have to use either, be sure to define and explain them. I was reading an IP and a letter to a parent, and it basically said the kid was at Dibbles 1.2 and was not making much progress and is now all the way at 1.4. Parent had no idea what Dibbles was. And first, Dibbles, the person who authored Dibbles, originally worked for the CAIU, and I saw her ex-husband last night in Carlisle. And so she was living in Carlisle at the time on Spitz Street. But it's about this is what we have to pay attention to this is stop using jargon. Pay attention to this. The test that I use is, can I place this in front of my grandmother? Can I place this in front of my grandmother, and would she understand what this is? My grandmother's not a teacher. She's an amazing woman, but she doesn't understand all the special ed jargon. If you think about this, think about someone else who's not in education. Can they understand what's going on? So you have to explain, pay attention to this, and move forward on this. Okay. I'm going to move forward also real quickly. Many of you are at the end of your school year and you have multiple meetings going on. I'm recommending you write an agenda. And you blame the agenda. And some tips here. It reduces anxiety about what will be covered, make sure it keeps the participants on track, but also gives guidance and say, well, and you can refocus everyone. We need to cover the items on the agenda. There's other things we want to talk about. We'll talk about it after we talk about our agenda items, but you should have everything with this. Get information from the parents, include notes from the parents, talk to the parents about what they need to cover as a part of this, because some of you are racing up on deadlines and your staff is leaving and you want to make sure what's going on. But the big thing is it prevents hijacking from either a staff member or a parent so that you can cover what's going on. But get parent input on this. Absolutely get parent input so you have an understanding of where to go with this. List the order for this meeting, list who will speak. It's not a script, but make sure you get your procedural items first. I mean, I attended an IEP meeting not too long ago when they started reading the IEP, and we were there, and an hour into it, we were barely met. They were reading word for word. I mean, I've watched paint dry that was more exciting than that. And so you have to think about, make sure you get your procedural items so that you cover those and pay attention to this, okay? But stay the course. Everyone gets a copy of the agenda, okay? Jointly dealing with the agenda dictates what we go on with part of this, okay? And more. A lot to cover. It keeps participants focused because some of you are dealing with some staff members and others who are just not focused. So keep this in mind as we talk about this, but it's a way to bring things back. But customize the agenda. Don't use the same agenda for everyone. Make sure it has the correct kid's name on it, the location, the participants, okay? Misspelling there, but it has the correct participants on it, and make sure you pay attention to these kinds of things as a part of this, okay? No time limits. Don't say like, we're going to cover this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes on this, things like this, and maybe need to translate some things as a part of this. So keep these things in mind as we talk about. Again, the website, how to sign up for the free Special Education Tuesday tips. There it is for you. And then my end of the year strategies, tips and strategies. So I'm going to turn it back. I'm going to turn it over to Sean Smith now, so that he can go. All right.
Thanks, David. Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know how to follow up after David, as always the case, but we're going to try. So first of all, in the chat, I posted the Google Slides, which I'm about to share, and I'm going to post something else in the chat here in just a moment. So let me get that all set up. Okay, so let me share with you folks, and it looks like folks are populating in. Now, those who have been with us before, everything I share in the Google presentation is embedded link-wise within the presentation. So that's one of the reasons I share it with you. And so here we go.
You're good. You're good.
Am I good? Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. So as we get started here, as David already introduced and Sarah, of course, set us up for, kind of looking at the end of the year, as well as the summer and a little bit towards the fall. I'm going to focus, though, a little bit on the summer. And I know it's a bit off at the same time here in Kansas, and I was just in Ohio this past weekend where it felt kind of springish, and came back to Kansas and we're 95 degrees. So all of a sudden the summer's here. And then I think we go back to the fall in a week or two. That's Kansas weather. But looking backward, forward, and the like, here we go. What I thought I'd do is, of course, always focus on the digital solutions. There's so much more, but I want to talk about the digital solutions and really thinking about some of the issues that David already mentioned, everything from reducing learning loss to empower us, not only what's happening today, but also thinking about that tomorrow, and some of the things that our learners might be able to do independently or be able to be facilitated with that adult in the home, or that we might be able to set up for them as we look towards the end of the year, which I know is rushing up at the same time and not there yet. And so I know we have a lot more school to cover before it comes. But with that said, many of us have discovered, have been, well, I won't use the word forced, but have been reinforced to use digital solutions. We've used it in a variety of different ways to support our students. We've done it for a number of different things. And I want to kind of capture that and build upon that. Now, with that, okay, that's with the focus going, I want to reinforce a couple things. I want to piggyback on what David shared just a moment ago. So over the course of this year, there's been several things that we've visited about on a monthly basis. And David was talking about that data at the end of the year. And many of us, it may be IEP season, although maybe that's not the technical term, but it seems that way, right? As we're wrapping up. But we're also wrapping up data on IEPs we've been facilitating, and of course, the progress monitoring data. And we talked about this previously. And of course, Patton has a number of different resources on this as well. And I don't want to just simply duplicate what David shared. I want to reinforce, though, in our September presentation, part of that conversation, not only plan design and digital resources with a purpose, but we talked about formative assessments and a variety of different assessments that could facilitate the collection of data but also then share student data walks, understand where they've been, show that progress, things of that nature. Many of them are free. Many of them that we're using, just want to reinforce those resources are there as you're looking for that additional data, that closing data. I'm going to talk about data a little bit later as well. Separately, in February, that interaction with the family, that communication with home that David spent a portion of the first 30 minutes on. I want to reinforce that we talked about that in February, about a number of digital solutions that are available to allow us to document that interaction, to facilitate that communication, to be able to prepare for those meetings, to reinforce what happened at those meetings, to facilitate those meetings if they're actually virtual, which have a lot of potential benefit due to the people that might be able to bring in that maybe not be able to be with us face-to-face, et cetera. So we talked about that in February, shared a lot of resources there. And so these two links, patent here and patent here, go to those presentations with those embedded resources. And I want to make you aware of those and just reinforce it and piggyback on what David said. Now, with that said, I would like to take a moment today, if we could, and I have it in the chat. I've hyperlinked it in the chat. So feel free to click on there. I'd like to take us over to a Padlet. And instead of just doing a waterfall in the chat, which we've done in the past, I'd like to ask us, what are some go-to digital solutions that maybe you've uncovered over this last academic year? Maybe it's been reinforced. Maybe it's something you've used in the past, but they've definitely been things that you're continuing to use, whatever they may be. But digital solutions, tools, apps, websites that are becoming really important to the support and education, the overall growth and development of the learners you work with. I'd love for folks to pop into the Padlet. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in a pause here because there's too much to cover and we have limited time. So this Padlet is not so much for me as it is for some of your colleagues. I'd love for you guys to be able to share some of the resources that you're finding as go-to. Now, of course, if you share the resource and you think it's going to be hard to Google and find, feel free to add the URL where they could go for more information. Or maybe it's a list of resources that Patton shared or something along those lines. And thank you so much. So ClassKick and Nearpod, familiar with both. I think we both can find those via Google. And then folks have offered commoncoresheets.com. Great. So feel free to add those on because clearly I think one of the benefits, one of the silver linings of the pandemic from my perspective is identifying more technology that can increase the efficiency and effectiveness of what we do for all our learners. So I'm going to not pause, I'm going to move on, but please feel free to continue on to that Padlet. And if you haven't figured it out, it's in the chat. I have it as a bit.ly. And you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to do it one more time. And this time I'm going to give you a direct link to the Padlet. So you'll see Padlet in the actual URL. If you're wondering, what says bit.ly, Sean? Well, it's just a way of saving space for the Padlet. So thanks so much for sharing, folks. And I'm going to move on here. And as I move on, I'm going to think a little bit about the summer and also next year. But I want to think about the fact that as I transition into this period of time that maybe the students aren't going to get that ESY, or maybe they're getting the ESY, but because of budgetary cuts, ESY went from 5 days a week to 4 days a week in their half day. And oh, it doesn't start until late June, maybe early July, and it finishes in late July. So it went from 6 weeks to 4 weeks. And I'm finding that nationally, I'm not sure in terms of your communities, but one area budget cuts in the last 10 years have been through ESY services. But maybe our students that we're working with don't get ESY. And instead, we're looking to support them as they move on. So with that thought in mind, I'm looking at my content management system. And I'm looking at the fact that many of us have done this for years. So I'll use this as an example. We've assigned IXL. We've allowed the students to continue with their password and username. And we've said, hey, go and complete the following resources throughout the summer, which is awesome. Now, it's awesome if I'm trying to do drill and practice. It's awesome if I'm trying to increase some fluency, and it's awesome generally if I'm in the area of math, because that's what IXL is great for. Yes, it does other areas, but generally it's drill and practice for math. Okay, but there's so much more in our content management systems that many of us are using. And I want us to reflect just a moment or two about how we might be able to prepare these further in independent use throughout the summer, because the students' access doesn't go away. I've never run into a district that all of a sudden, the end of school is June 14th, and all of a sudden our system goes down June 15th, unless of course we're doing some sort of updates, but access is still there. It's just generally we're not, it's not a 9-month contract, it's generally a 12-month contract. So generally the students have access. So when I'm thinking about this, and when you're looking to facilitate further use of this, ask yourself, how I might be able to organize some lessons that I already have for some independent work. Or maybe there's data that is there that also could be further collected as the student moves on, that maybe as it's collected would give us more information towards the transition to next year. Maybe not us, maybe our colleague that will have that child. How to think about those dashboards, and also think about what's there in respect to, if I select IXL, I'm really thinking drill and practice. I'm thinking study island. Maybe I'm thinking more empowerment and enrichment, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to continue thinking about that, okay, think about resources. I want to make sure I didn't skip things. Think about the content management systems and the variety of resources we have and the differences in what they do. So for example, Edgenuity, I haven't mentioned Edgenuity so much, but Edgenuity offers a lot of, when I say content management systems, let me back up, folks, make sure we're all on the same page. These are systems, as you know, we have lessons fully developed. We have data collection aligned there, so there's some sort of assessment. There's a direction, and you complete one, you go to the next and next and next, and it's generally independent of us. We get it set up and then assigned, and the students working fairly independently. There's value there. But there's differences in the various resources that might fall under a content management system. We're going to get to a learning management system in a few minutes as well. But let's think of BrainPop or BrainPop Junior as an example. So the differences between that versus Ingenuity versus IXL versus Study Island, et cetera. I think this is not, I don't have enough time to go into all the differences, but what I want to reinforce is our reflection of that as we're assigning. So for example, I already mentioned IXL, great for drilling practice, great for math. I'd argue for students that struggle, particularly students with disability, it doesn't do a great job of offering me alternative pathways for instruction when I get challenged with the concept. IXL tends not to be great at that. I think it was developed more, I know it was developed more for drill and practice and developing fluency. So great, assign it for that purpose. BrainPop was developed as anchored instruction. Now that's a language out there in the literature. What's anchored instruction, Sean? The skinny of it is, it's to set the stage, it's foundational understanding. It allows me to establish context to vocabulary, to an idea, to, of course, aligning to a standard, to a concept I'm trying to teach. And of course, Moby does a great job with his counterpart, which all of a sudden it went in and out of my head. And many of us already know who he is, Tim and Moby, and BrainPop. And so therefore, if I'm going to assign BrainPop, or I'm going to, not assign it, of course, for the summer, but if I'm going to recommend it, if I'm going to develop some ideas behind it, if I'm going to facilitate it in terms of, here, student, this is how I'd recommend you using it, or here, parent, this is how I'd recommend you using it, think about the purpose behind it. It's great for vocabulary enrichment. It's great for, with the lesson plans and pacing guides to facilitate that. It has some phenomenal games that reinforce it. And there's a school as well as family section. So think about how to manage that, to maybe put it up on my Google Classroom to make it available, to then facilitate a level of independent learning as the student goes on through the summer. Different from IXL, which would be more drill and practice, this might be review of concepts that weren't reinforced or weren't accomplished. It might be pre-teaching for next year and everything in between. In addition, there are other systems out there that still fall under this content management system, but are more particular to some of our populations. So for example, if I'm working with students with intellectual disability, developmental disability and delays, autism, unique learning system is a place I'm going to go to. Now, many of us are already there, great, but that's targeted for, as we know, reading. There's reading and language development they've done, I think, a very good job on. Math, social studies, science, transition, they include that. I don't think it's nearly as robust or mature in terms of the level of independence for the learner, as well as what they have quantity-wise. But it's there, but more importantly, it's there for this type of population. And so therefore, instead of saying, go off to BrainPop, no, I'm going to identify some things in unique learning systems. I'll set the structure for you as the educator to allow you to do some independent learning separate from me, but be it recovery, be it pre-teaching, be it reinforcement, whatever it may be for that student I'm working with. But of course, unique learning systems is part of several other components, including News to You. Many of us use News to You, and these are direct links to those, by the way. So for example, unique learning systems, as I click here, will take me to a variety of things it offers. And yes, it is for pay. It's a content management system. Most of those are for pay. And so, of course, if you don't have access to this, I'm not saying, oh, go out and buy it, nor go out and tell the parent to buy it. But if you are using it, this is what you structure to then help facilitate it. And by the way, I know a number of family members that come and say, what can I purchase for the summer? And this might be one, definitely if I have a child with Down syndrome. My son has Down syndrome. We use unique learning systems tremendously during the school year and during the summer. News to you, my goodness, and Joey's locker and things of that nature were standard in our house for years. And yes, we ended up paying for that extra, especially during the summer when we needed further access. But I'm not suggesting that for all, because of course economic means are limited for some, if not for a good number of individuals that we're working with. Now, there's also content management systems, and I say the word kinda because are they full-blown lessons? Yes. Do they have data behind it? Yes. Do they offer sometimes dashboard systems to show how the student is doing? Yes. Does it assign lesson to lesson? Oftentimes, yes. So those are very much content management, but many of these are free. So Khan Academy is one, it's free. How would I organize this across a number of different subject areas? We have PBS Kids. Now, PBS Kids, as an example, by the way, there's several of these out there. There's oh my gosh, dozens of these, right? Khan Academy is the one we tend to know, but there's dozens of these that offer this type of support in a linear fashion in areas that students could work independently. So for example, many of us know PBS Learning Media, and PBS Learning Media has all sorts of different topics, everything from science to mathematics to arts to preschool. They're videos that are coordinated, they're sequential. Most of this is for free. Now, in addition, PBS Kids has an offshoot for learning that's self-paced learning specifically for pre-K through 2. And of course, in this area, it has it across different areas. They have modules that have been created in terms of most likely, most of them are video-based. They're about 15 to 30-minute learning segments. And yes, I can embed them in Google Classroom. But to me, these are types of things that I would structure to help facilitate that learning for the summer in preparation for that next year. And I'm not sure why my mouse is just, oh, there you go. My mouse all of a sudden had a problem there. All right, so again, thinking about what I want to be doing, think about what I want to be doing, and then also how I expecting the student to use them. And that's where in my learning management system, and I'm going to get to that in just a second, I might get those resources, assign lessons, identify pathways for the students to complete, offer the big picture, talk to parents or the adult in the home about data walks or the student, empower the parents. And there's a link here to facilitate how to empower parents and things of that nature. So there's a number of different things that are resources out there that we're already using to be better mindful of and planning for this summer that in the past, honestly, I think there's been limitations in terms of some of these resources and times and some things to think about. Now, I've been mentioning content management systems, and of course, there's a number of learning management systems. Many of us, because of the pandemic now, are using Seesaw or Schoology or PowerSchool or Google Class or Canvas, whatever it may be. But embedding within the learning management system, these resources and then the directions, things that we're already doing, but to extend that for the summer to get them ready for the fall, think about all the features that are involved, the formative assessments that are sitting in there, the fact that we have structured for self-guided tutorials, the lessons are there, the assignments are there. There's so much going on in the learning management system we're already utilizing. Why couldn't we create some opportunities for that extended learning to facilitate that with the adult or the student in the home that could then prepare them for what's expected of them for next year, a little pre-teaching, catch up from this past year, reinforce elements that might get lost during those 2 to 3 months off of school. Might be suggestions in terms of activities totally separate from the technology that they could do in extended learning opportunities. I'll reinforce that just in a moment, but our learning management system, as it is right now, could be the home from which the student then utilizes some structure and some guidance throughout the summer. So be thinking about that. Of course, there's so many things going on with the learning management system. Now, I offer the learning management system kinda as well here because, oh my goodness, are there not a tremendous number of videos out there? Yes, there are. And so to me, this is something else we can embed to further facilitate learning. So for example, there's countless tutorials out there. There's countless how-tos, enrichments, et cetera, Crash Course is a perfect example. They have a whole YouTube channel on all sorts of different videos for learning purposes that goes across the K-12 environment. The new ed classroom, I'm going to click over here because I also want us thinking, and we're going to bridge back to the teacher here, but from the student perspective, there's a number of different technology or different YouTube channels that teach to empower us as educators, but some of these are quite good for potential some of our students we're working with. I'm going to piggyback on that in just a moment, but this could be for us, the educator, as well as the student, and I'll reinforce that here in just a moment. But more importantly, YouTube is tremendous in the number of resources it offers that we could then incorporate, suggest, help facilitate in our planning in the learning management system that they then work with and use independently. Now, with that thought, there's a number of different tools. I am just tip of the iceberg, right? So for example, there's Newsela. Students have an account in Newsela. We know that helps in terms of reading. We know it helps in terms of comprehension, decoding, fluency. It levels the text. It allows individuals to continue with current events. It could just be reinforcing what to use in Newsela. Starfall, of course, helps me in my early reading. Cool Math, games and Cool Math itself has some tremendous stuff for math. There's apps like Social Express that deals with social emotional learning. A lot of these things are out there. And of course, we've received this information. We're using some of these tools, as you've shared in the Padlet, how to potentially foster that further development. I would say housing it in our learning management system, and then reinforcing, hey, go utilize these resources for further development of those skills. Now, I'm going to pivot a bit differently in terms of some of these tools, and that is, and again, these are all hyperlinked, but in terms of, tools like the visual schedule, these are tools that maybe over the summer, the student learns to actually use. So for example, visual schedule is a great tool, and my mouse just doesn't want to cooperate with me. It's a great tool, perfect for students that struggle. It allows for them to get a bit more self-determined in their own planning. And of course, it's out there. Now, there's a cost associated with it. So it might be that you identify the fact that, well, everyone has access to read, write on their Chrome app. And so therefore, we're going to make sure the student gets an understanding of read, write. So they come back this next school year very accomplished in the use of read, write, or maybe it's an inspiration or co-writer or whatever technology we think is critical to further facilitate not only their accessibility to learning, but their advancement of learning. So this could be technologies for them that we would then, hey, here's some YouTube videos to watch. Here's some resources that have been created. Here's some suggestions to be able to practice, et cetera, that we then tend to try to facilitate. Now, can't think about, we already mentioned us, but can't leave here without thinking about us. There, as David already mentioned, there's a tremendous number of resources for us out there during the summer. And you're like, okay, Sean and David, I need to relax. I need to take a break. I need to get away. I was talking to my sister who teaches at a Catholic school, and during Easter, they had a week. And she was talking about the fact that, I needed 2 or 3 days just to decompress. And then I graded for the rest. So vacation didn't happen. And I know that some of the same way. So looking for other things to do work-wise, Sean, no, thank you. But at least I want to reinforce that there's some available at our fingertips that are digital. So for example, the Iris Center out of the Vanderbilt University offers some tremendous number of modules, resources, things of that nature for your independent learning on all sorts of different topics. Everything from accommodations, as 504 related, as David shared, to assistive technology, to content instruction. And they were developed for us, educators, working with struggling learners and those with disabilities. Of course, there's the TIE Center is intellectual disabilities, understood, is for parents, of course. It's a parent focus, but they have a whole educator strand. Pocketful Primary is an example of YouTube channels that educators created for us educators, and the list goes on. So there's a number of different resources for us for extension. Of course, David mentioned all the different patent activities and resources. I do want to mention the fact that there are a number of virtual conferences increasingly available. OcaliCon is, for those that don't know, Ocali, it's out of Ohio. It's Ohio Center on Autism and Low Incidence Disabilities. They do phenomenal work in terms of the area of deaf. They do phenomenal work in terms of the area of intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism. They're offering a virtual conference in the month of November. Yes, not until November, but it's free. They have over 20,000 attendees already registered. It's all going to be virtual and it's all going to be free. The OcaliCons of the world, take a look at those. It's increasingly virtual conferences becoming available free or low cost. There's face-to-face conferences, as David mentioned there in Pennsylvania, but there's national ones. One that I go to every single year as a parent with a child with Down syndrome is the National Down Syndrome Congress. This year it's in New Orleans. Yes, that's a bit of a trip. Yes, New Orleans in late June is going to be a bit muggy, but talk about an opportunity to really learn about Down syndrome and be with other individuals with intellectual disabilities, et cetera. There's a lot of face-to-face conferences, as David mentioned as well. And so look local, et cetera. But there's also resources online like the PBIS Center that walks through a number of different things that we could go just-in-time learning during that summer for us. Now, with that, we got to think of the parents as well. And of course, we talked about the parent centers here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There's a number of different resources out there that parents, that we could then reinforce with parents, share with parents to further empower them, to further facilitate their development, to further get them on board. So then as we come into the next year, they may be a little bit more empowered and enabled to be able to take on more role and responsibility as increasingly is being asked due to the use of this digital learning particularly. There's a number of different links out here to talk about that family interaction, family summer toolkits and things of that nature to facilitate that. Increasingly, there's also resources created by other entities, like this is Broward County, I think one of the top 5 school districts in the country, and they have a whole university for parents. And I'm not saying this is going to be perfect for us in Pennsylvania, but these types of resources are increasingly created. Of course, Patent and Peel is where I'm going to begin and maybe where I'll end. But those types of resources to further empower and engage our parents, I think is a great way during this summer as they're working with their child and they're looking for answers. They're looking for solutions. They're aware that they need to catch them up. And so they're looking for further supports and would be ideas to facilitate that. Increasingly also separate from the digital. I know I've led a lot with digital, but there's so much more I could cover here, but particularly with the family thoughts, there's a number of camps. David and I are both engaged with summer camps, David more so than I am, that are target individuals with disabilities. There's several in the Commonwealth. I'm linking to one in the Midwest here because I've been closely aligned to it for over a decade. My son has been attending for it. They focus on intellectual and developmental delays and autism. Tremendous camp, low cost. The Parks and Rec, letting parents, and it's letting parents know about these is where I'm going. The Parks and Rec, so for example, our Parks and Rec have a special population. They have a facilitation of a number of camps. They have a number of activities during the summer. Letting parents know about those, informing those, making those connections is huge. Now, also, you know, there's waiver support, and I know there's autism support there in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, as well as intellectual and developmental disability, but ideas in terms of how to coordinate with that waiver support if the students that you're working with have that support from tutoring, for adaptive and functional care, things that you can give them ideas for to further facilitate the use of that waiver support, the aides and support workers that are with them, instead of just simply, which is important, and that's just simply daily care is critical, but it also could be guidance beyond daily care that could help facilitate further development for the classroom. Folks, I lived that. I lived that with my own son, who during the school year had access to waiver support, and during the summer, we coordinated with that waiver support to develop skills as we went into the school year. We didn't utilize our educators. I'm an educator myself, of course, but my goodness, I talked to a lot of parents about how to utilize that waiver support in a very purposeful manner to pay off when they entered school year back in the fall. My goodness, if we could help facilitate that for those individuals that are fortunate enough to get the waiver support, something else to think about as well. All right, I could go on and on and on. There's my email address. Yes, never time for questions. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you this academic year. I know the academic year is not over yet. I know there's a lot of work to be done. I do hope the digital solutions, and many did share on the Padlet, that I hope you continue to incorporate and also pivot to how they can be utilized by others for that more independent, self-paced type of instruction, particularly in preparation for the next school year, as well as support during this summer to catch up, to be able to prepare, etc. All right, I'll stop sharing and bring it back over to Sarah and Ethan.
Thank you, Dr. Bateman and Dr. Smith. Let me grab my slides here. Okay. Again, thank you for our presenters, Dr. Bateman and Dr. Smith, for sharing so many great resources and considerations and strategies. So as mentioned, all the slides, resource, and links are now available and posted in our share notes doc, and the recording will be posted shortly. So if you don't see the updates, you may want to refresh your browser and your web page. So this hour really flies by so quickly, and so does this year. We cannot believe this is our last session of this year's SSDVE Present series. As we wrap up the hour, please make sure that you submit your attendance for F48 credits and or for ASHA credits too. Whether you do this at this moment or you need to run out the door, I know it's almost 4. Please take a note of the link for attendance. We will leave our attendance form open until midnight. The full link, I believe Sarah is going to post that in the chat window. You can also use the tiny URL or the QR code to access the attendance form. They all go to the same attendance form. We do have virtual office hour for this month. This month is on May 17th, 3 to 4. There are some asynchronous module in our Schoology. So we definitely encourage you to check out those resources in our Schoology course. As we wrap up this school year, we just want to thank you for all you do for our students in Pennsylvania. Thank you all of you and our presenters for being with us this year. Again, if you need any support or have any questions, please reach out to us. We'll keep the room open for a few minutes. But if you are ready, we'll say have a wonderful, wonderful evening and have a wonderful end of school year. Thank you, everybody.